Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. This is normally our Tuesday college football wrap-up and look-ahead edition, but we pushed it out to Wednesday. You know, life happens, but here we go.
Let's do it.
And, of course, joining me today to talk college football is none other than the Format Podcast college football analyst, my main man, former Illinois Fighting Illini, former Indianapolis Colt, former Saskatchewan Rough Rider, former Ottawa Red Black, former BC Lion, and former Winnipeg Blue Bomber. I think I got them all this time.
Hey, got them all.
My man, Ryan Lankford, former wide receiver and kick return specialist. What's good, Ryan?
Hey, man, glad to be here.
Absolutely, man. As always, so happy to have you to talk college football today, man. Let's go ahead and get right to it, man. So, week 9 was one of those weeks. It didn't have a whole ton of super intriguing matchups, but by this point in the season, you're really starting to see things kind of, well, I guess not. I was about to say you're starting to see things kind of shake out in terms of the playoff, but that would have been last year when we had a 14 playoff and things would have been a lot more defined. But now we've got a 12-team playoff, which I love. And realistically, that gives a lot more teams a lot more reasons to continue to play hard. It gives a lot more players reasons to continue to play hard. It gives a lot of fan bases hope, you know, at the unthinkable, which would have been last year. You lose one game in certain situations and you're pretty much out of the running. But this I think is really exciting. And like I've said, this is the most exciting season of college football I've seen in a long time. I'm really enjoying it. And I'm loving watching these games and just I can't wait. I'm super excited. Next Tuesday is when we're going to see the initial college football playoff rankings, which quick side note, I don't know why ESPN and the freaking college football playoff committee would have decided to release the initial rankings on election day. I don't know what they were thinking there. I mean, I know we love college football in America, but I think they're going to take an L on that one, man.
People going to be by their TVs, I guess. That's what they're ready for.
Maybe. I guess they're hoping that people are going to be switching over during commercials from Fox News and MSNBC and all that, because they're definitely going to take an L on this one. But you know what, though? That leads me to believe, right, since we know as much as this is an on-the-field thing, it's also a huge TV product. That leads me to believe, and maybe I'm a skeptic or a conspiracy theorist, I think the committee might do something crazy just to attract some attention, since they're going to lose a lot of traction being on at the same night as the election. What do you think about that?
Yeah, possibly. Or they're going to just have a super huge production that they just haven't, make it more of a almost like a selection show, probably, because it'll be a little bit longer. There'll be more teams, and maybe they'll do that kind of thing to get people really excited to buy in. But I'm excited because, just like you said, it's been an exciting year of football. It's special. I mean, a lot of teams are going to get an opportunity to essentially play, for the national championship if they can make it into the playoffs. And I'm excited, man. I'm excited. We're gonna see what happens.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. I think this is just awesome, man. What we're gonna see. And again, this to me, like, one of the arguments you kept hearing was that a 12-team playoff will make the regular season less important and blah blah blah. Because when it was a 14 playoff, every single week could be, you're out. But no, I think if you continue to give teams a reason to continue to play hard, you get a better product all the way throughout the year. And again, I don't know if I've expressed this to you, but one of my main thoughts, one of my main beefs with college football, and still to some degree, is because it's not strictly on your merit. It's this committee with these nebulous set of criteria, if you even want to call it criteria, because they can change week to week and year to year, right? This nebulous set of decision-making points that no one seems to know exactly what they are except the people inside that room. You get in this situation where it's left in the hands of other people no matter what you do, right? And so that's always been my biggest complaint, because like you could be a team that has an incredible season and never gets a chance to prove it on the field because, some people in a room somewhere don't think you earned it. If you get on the field and you get smoked, so be it, right? But, get that opportunity. It's just like a couple of years ago, people are looking back saying TCU should have never been there against Georgia. No, that's wrong. They earned their shot. they got what they got. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
they got
man,
for sure.
they got definitely. So that's
But
where I
yeah,
am on it, man.
I'm with you on that too, and I think it's going to open up so much more opportunity, like you said, and someone's going to be the first team to shock the world. Someone's going to be
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one team that's going to
Eventually,
go
it's
on a
gonna happen.
run,
That's right.
and everyone's going to be like, man, that's why they did it.
Yeah,
That's why
yeah.
they, because the story's gonna
That's
be
right.
crazy. It's gonna be one
Hmm.
of those things that just makes sports really what it is. And
Yes.
um,
And then the next year, you're going to see another school say that could be us, and
that could be
you know,
us. Exactly.
yeah, I think that's going to be
Exactly.
awesome,
And
awesome for the sport
maybe that'll get people from moving so much, trying to transfer,
overall. Mhm.
because the
True. That's right.
opportunity to actually play for a championship
Hmm.
kind of, it opens up a little bit more room, because
Yeah,
now you just
yeah.
got to make it into the playoffs.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
And I believe I heard that the possibility for expanding to either 14 or 16 games is still on the table for the next couple of years. So,
Mm.
I mean, hey, I'm all with it. I am all with it, especially
Yep.
especially these cats can get paid now, so it's not
Yeah,
like they're out there throwing their bodies in the way and they can't be compensated. This is good. This is good. I love
right,
it. Um,
right.
well, let's go ahead and go back to week 9, which was last week, and we'll do a quick little run through. So. Of course, I want to start with Notre Dame and Navy. And the reason I want to start there is because this will lead right into the second game that I want to talk about. So the reason I want to start there, obviously, to open the season, Notre Dame goes down to Kyle Field at Texas A&M in game 1 and beats A&M in a tough one in front of 107,000 people, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame has had this rep for some years now, and it's been earned that they can't stand up in the big game. We saw them lose last year by having 12 men on the field on the final play against freaking Ohio State, right? We
Yeah.
saw them play Ohio State tough at Ohio State the year before, but didn't quite have the horses to bring it home. We've seen a lot of situations where Notre Dame just couldn't quite get it done in a big game situation. About 5 years ago, played Georgia really, really tight, and I think
Right.
lost by 2 or 3 at Notre Dame. Lost to Georgia the following season at Georgia by like 7. So played really tight against some of these good teams, and of course, there's been some blowouts in there as well. But they've never been quite able to get over the hump. And so, the premise by a lot of people was that, well, Notre Dame doesn't have the athletes. Notre Dame can't deal with the SEC speed and the SEC strength and size and blah blah blah. And so I'm not going to say they put that to bed. That'll never truly be put to bed probably until they win another championship. And obviously, I'm not saying that's
Mm-hmm.
happening this year, but tough matchup to open it up. They go down, they play against one of the best defenses, one of the best defensive coaches, one of the best defensive front lines in the country in A&M, and they beat them in their own house. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody's got Notre Dame, a top 5 team in the country. They're excited. Notre Dame's got a chance to win it all. Da da da. And then they come home and totally crap the bed the following week against Northern Illinois, which has since turned
Mm-hmm.
into a 500 team. That's one of the worst losses in the country. And Notre Dame fan or
Right.
not, I have to be objective and sit here and tell you that was a terrible loss. Coach Freeman did not have that team ready to play. They read their press clippings. They came out. They got handled. Cool. But since then, you've seen this team, despite numerous injuries, continue to improve, continue to play better. And they played Navy last week, and that was a game that can always be tricky when you're dealing with the service academies. Have you ever had a chance to
Mm-hmm.
play against the service academies when you were in college? Did
No.
you play any of them?
Mm-mm. Nope.
Okay.
Never had that opportunity.
Mm. So we know that the service academies don't get the elite of the elite college football athletes generally, but
Mm-hmm.
the way they generally play with a tremendous amount of discipline, don't make a lot of mistakes, obviously, right?
Right.
And they run a scheme that can often compensate for the lack of total athleticism and team speed. A lot of triple
Mm-hmm.
option stuff, a lot of veer, that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
it just takes a lot of defensive discipline, et cetera. And so a lot of people, myself included, were saying maybe this could be a Notre Dame trap game. Having won at that point 5 in a row, maybe that could have been a trap game. And so Notre Dame goes to MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, and they beat Notre
Mm-hmm.
Dame Navy. They put 51 on them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big game, and now they've got to bye this week. What are your thoughts on what Notre Dame did to Navy last week, including forcing, I think, 6 turnovers from a usually extremely disciplined and formerly undefeated team?
Yeah, I thought it was impressive, right? Anytime that you can number one, put 50 points on the board. That's you playing some good ball, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think if you can also hold the defense down, the under 20, under 30,
Hmm.
that's still impressive too.
Right.
Especially when a Navy team that had been playing some pretty good football this year.
Yes.
We can call it what it is. And I think people are kind of hung up on like, well, it's still Navy. Well, they still
Hmm.
winning games, and looking good and, or have a
Hmm.
chance to could potentially make the playoffs. Like this is a
Yes.
different type of college football. So I feel as a whole
Hmm.
Notre Dame did well. They did not want to have another, kind of sleeper game, like you said, like they had
No.
against Northern. And then once they started getting some turnovers, capitalizing on things, they kind of put the game away.
Hmm. Hmm. And so I think what's interesting here is that again, Notre Dame wins this game going away 51-14. They do get the
Mhm.
6 turnovers, but even with that, Navy still ran the ball against a very good Notre Dame defense for 222 yards here. So
Yeah.
they're going to do what they're going to do. But again, there's just no way to overcome giving the opposition all those extra possessions. You can't
Mhm.
do anything there, you know?
And I think
And
4 or
mhm.
5 of them were fumbles, right? And that's
Yeah, I believe
worse
so. Yeah.
than I mean, it's not any
Seven
type of
fumbles,
turnover
5
is bad,
lost. Yeah.
right? Every
Hmm.
type of turnover is bad, but fumbles usually that's the rule number one when you start playing football. Protect the ball,
That's right.
period.
That's right.
And we work on things to maintain the ball. And hats off to Notre Dame defense. When
Hmm.
defenses are taught and harped on all week, rip at the ball, put your helmet
Hmm.
on the ball, do that kind of
Hmm.
stuff.
Peanut
When
punch.
you're in camp, yeah, when you're in camp, you're annoyed. I'll be honest. As a receiver, that type of stuff in practice would be so annoying because it's like, yo,
Hmm.
plays over, and they still trying
Hmm.
to hit the ball out your hand just to
Right.
get them in that habit of go
Yes.
for the ball, rip for the ball, rip for the ball.
Hmm.
But once the season starts and we
Hmm.
leading in defensive takeaways, it's like,
Hmm.
okay,
Hmm.
I'm cool with that. I'm offense
Right.
back up.
Right.
I'm
Right.
cool with it. Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Hmm. Hmm. Definitely. So yeah. So looking at that, Notre Dame is now, I think they are number 8 in the country in the AP. And so they have managed to climb their way back up after that really tough loss. And
Yeah.
if they can win out, depending on what happens in front of them, they're putting themselves in position to clearly make the 12 team playoff, as well as possibly having that opportunity to host a first round game, which to me, I think is going to be really, really huge. And for the following
Yeah.
reason, you played in that part of the country, and playing in that part of the country in December, where it could be snowing and it's going to be cold as heck, and you will likely have one of these southern teams coming up there.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't mean you don't have to execute and all that, but I believe personally that is a decided advantage when you got guys who, are used to playing in the South. It's
Yep.
still 75, 80 degrees where they're coming from. Like, if you can train for the heat, you can't train for the cold. There's nothing you can do about that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I definitely think that could possibly be an advantage. I mean, especially if it snows there, like those
You're
guys
right.
aren't going to know what to do.
You're right.
They don't
Like you
know how
said,
to deal with
you can't train for the cold
that. Hmm.
unless it's cold where you're at.
Yes. Yes.
You can't train for the cold unless it's cold where you train.
Hmm.
Like so, like you said, if one of these teams come from down south and got to go up there and
Hmm.
it's snowing,
Hmm.
some guys haven't seen snow before, right? Some
Right.
guys might
That's
not have
right.
played up there. Like
That's right.
that's tough.
Hmm. And I'll tell you just a quick story. It's the most amazing thing in the world when you're a person like myself. I grew up, this is the first place I've ever lived, Florida, where it doesn't
Hmm.
really snow. And
Hmm.
so, like, when I was in the Army, I was in Germany. It was my first duty station. And I'm coming out of barracks one day and it's snowing. And there's this guy and he's just standing there and he's just looking into the sky. And I'm like, yo, are you okay? And he's
Yeah,
like, I'm from Georgia. I've never seen snow before. And I'm
that's
like,
right.
oh, okay, well, enjoy that, man. Because I
Yeah,
mean, it is a beautiful thing when you see the snow falling. So just to say that, and then but you have to be out there for 3 hours trying to play in that, and there's no amount of acclimation
right.
that can happen. Even if you get your team up there a week in advance, like it's still not enough. So
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, so Notre Dame definitely has a chance if they continue to win. I think they got to bye this week. Following that, they've got Florida State, then Virginia, then Army, another service academy, but another ranked opponent. Army is still undefeated to this point.
Hmm.
And then they finish out at USC. So legitimate opportunity for them to
They got a
finish the
shot.
season 11-1 here.
Yeah,
Got
for
to
sure.
stay focused. Yeah, it's interesting because you look at the really great teams are so outstanding that they find the balance between focusing on each and every game, but
Hmm.
also being able to look ahead, knowing that those one at a time wins are leading to something bigger. Notre Dame is not on that level. They can't do that. They can't look ahead to anything.
Hmm.
NIU told us that, right? But it's going to be very interesting. So
Yeah.
yeah, what that leads right into for me, and I'm going to love your thoughts on this, was LSU and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
So that had a lot of subplots that also connect to Notre Dame, right? LSU
Hmm.
head coach Brian Kelly obviously left Notre Dame 3 years ago after a very successful run there. Got to a national championship game, got to two 14 playoffs, but couldn't get over the hump. But tremendous number of wins. I think all-time wins leader as a head coach at Notre Dame, if I'm not mistaken. So you've got all of that, but he says, "Hey, I can't get it done here." So he says, "Hey, I'm going to go down to LSU where the resources are infinite, right? The
Hmm.
academic standards aren't quite the same,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
right, they grow wide receivers and DBs on trees down there, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so now he's the coach of LSU. He's at a Heisman Trophy winner. So he's done his thing, and they played uh, Texas A&M, who we mentioned earlier, lost in Week 1 to Notre Dame, but Texas A&M has not lost since.
Yeah.
They are the only team in the SEC that's undefeated in league play. So I think that's absolutely huge. And what did you think of A&M and what you saw against LSU? I thought it was a very impressive performance.
I did too, and I really think A&M played with that chip on their shoulder like a little bit, with that
Mhm.
grit. Had that
Yes.
home field advantage, came out in those black jerseys and meant business
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
beginning.
Hmm.
And that's why you gotta love football, just because that's
Yes.
that momentum that we talked about. Like that's a
Hmm.
tough environment to go into for anybody,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't simulate that. You can't simulate the feel and thousands of fans being in there, plus whoever is all watching on ESPN back home.
Hmm.
All that type of stuff plays into the environment of the game. But I think
Hmm.
as a whole, Texas A&M came out and played confidently. Um, Defensively, I would say they came out there and and did some things and
Yes.
played well.
Yeah. They took 3 picks off of LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier. He
Yeah.
threw for 405, but a lot of that obviously starts to come when the game is. I can't even say that. Well, he threw for 405 because LSU could get nothing going on the ground. 23 carries for 24 yards. Like that is a phenomenal defensive performance by Texas A&M. So they
They were juiced
completely
up.
shut down the run. They get 3 interceptions off of Nussmeier, and they also well, they didn't get any fumbles, but they forced one, but they didn't recover. But the point is, when you look at this thing, 3 turnovers and completely shut down the run, that's the
Mhm.
recipe for success. Um, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, A&M outscored LSU 31-6 in the second half of that game. Now, here's
Mm.
the scary part. A&M threw the ball 8 for 20. Their starting quarterback Connor Wegman, I think he got pulled. He was six
Yep.
for 18 for 64 yards. I don't know if they tried to spin it that he got dinged, but I believe he got pulled. So Marcel Reed, I believe he's either a red shirt or a true freshman. He comes in 2 for 2 for 70 yards. So not much there,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
A&M ran the ball 49 times for 242 yards. That's what I love to see, Ryan. You
Mhm.
know me, man. I'm
Mhm.
old school. I want to see
Mhm.
people get punched in the mouth and and run that ball down their throat, man.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
think about the way A&M was able to enforce their will physically on LSU?
Yeah, well, I think number one, the quarterback switch actually affected the game, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
now they had to take into consideration that, hey, we got a quarterback that can read us. And if
Yeah,
he makes a correction and pulls,
hmm,
he can take this thing to the house. And he had a
that's right.
touchdown like that, I
He
think, when
got
they're in
three.
the red zone. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
that's tough. And just that split second as a defender causes you to play that much slower, right? And that's one
Mm-hmm.
less step. That's one less second or half a second that the defensive end is not rushing, which gives the receiver on the outside one extra second to get that much more separation, gives the quarterback that much more time to throw the ball. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all those things can really come into play on top of being in that environment. right? So there's a lot of stuff that can go on. But I think
Yeah,
Texas A&M, offensively, when they made that switch, it really gave them kind of the opportunity to kind of keep LSU on their heels, because LSU watching film, they didn't prepare for that. They didn't
that's right.
prepare for
That's
that
right.
to happen, and then it happened,
Hmm.
and then they're kind of scrambling.
No answer.
Yep.
Yeah. Marcel Reed, that quarterback you were mentioning that came in, he ran 9 times for 62 yards. That's almost 7 yards a carry and
Yeah.
3 rushing touchdowns. Like that is a dangerous weapon, as you said, to add into a system that the defense was totally and wholly unprepared for. And that's tough, man. Because I'll tell you what, I was also
Right.
looking at this thing
Right.
and I'm like, LSU, I think if they win out, they still could make the 14 playoff, right? Because it's not going to surprise me at all if the
Mhm.
SEC gets 4 teams in. Like that's that's what I expect, right? I expect to see 4 teams in
Mhm.
from the
Mhm.
SEC. I expect to see probably 3 from the Big Ten, maybe one from was that what we got 7 there. We get the couple of at-larges, maybe one from the Big 12, probably their champion, maybe their runner-up, depending on how good that team is. And then you get that last
Right.
group of 5
Right.
entrant. So there you go. But I wouldn't be too worried if I was LSU, but they got to finish strong because it would not surprise me at
They
all
have
if you
to.
have Georgia, Texas, A&M, and maybe Bama. The winner of that LSU Bama game is probably that de facto playoff
Mhm.
game for the 4th spot for the SEC.
Mhm. And they've already got 2 losses too. Like,
That's right.
it is, even though the playoffs is wider, like those
Hmm.
losses, that's gonna hurt. They just
Yeah.
it's not gonna look good when you're trying to compete and they're, okay,
Hmm.
well, who's the last 2 team we're gonna put in?
Hmm.
SEC school that's doing this with multiple losses, or this
Hmm.
other school that's kind of on the rise that does have the same
Hmm.
amount of losses, but
Hmm.
so I think in situations like that, especially
Hmm.
with this new college football landscape, they might
Yes.
give that other team the opportunity, because there's
So
already some SEC schools in there, like you said.
I hear what you're saying, and that's logical. But we know that fairly or unfairly, the SEC
You
runs
still say
college football.
SEC, like you're saying?
I'm trying to tell you, man, they will always give them the benefit of the doubt because they're going to
Yeah.
say those 2 losses aren't as bad because that conference is so good. That's what's going to get said. You know what I mean? That's always the benefit of the doubt that the SEC
Yeah.
is going
Yeah.
to get. And as much as I hate it, to some degree, they've earned a little bit of that. But again, that shouldn't carry from year to year. Ideally, it's what happened this year,
Yeah.
what happened this season, but that's not
Right.
really how it goes. But yeah, that was a
Right.
heck of a game, and
Right.
I'm watching, and I was doing my normal Saturday Night Live show, and I'm like, I got it on the other monitor, and I'm like, in the middle of the show, I'm getting all excited. I'm like, let's go, Giga Aggies. And you know me, I never root for the
Yeah.
SEC, but
Yeah.
this is gonna help the Irish, so I'm good with this. So yeah,
That's
that
right.
was
You got to do it.
very impressive
You got
showing,
to do
and
it.
yeah, A&M is looking to become they're one of the best teams in the country. But I'll tell you this: here's the other thing, and there is a possibility that at some point A&M keeps doing what they do, that they're going to pass Notre Dame in the college football playoff rankings, and I'm going to get so upset. I mean,
Mm.
on one hand, I know what it is, but on the other hand, I'm like, why are we playing the games if a head-to-head matchup doesn't matter at all? Like, why are we playing if
Right.
that doesn't matter? Because let's just say
Right.
hypothetically, A&M goes on and wins the damn SEC championship. You telling me that you're going to bump them over Notre Dame that beat them because Notre Dame slipped up the week later? Nah, man, come on.
Mm.
That should
Mm.
bump Notre Dame even higher, saying, "Yo, we beat the champion of the best conference in the land." You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see.
We
At
will.
the end of the
We
day,
will. We will.
we always know the SEC is probably going to get the nod. Which, again, like
Mm.
I don't know why we have head to head if it doesn't matter. If I'm not mistaken, that's one of the biggest things that the committee always talked about, even going back to the 4 team committee, that the biggest thing is the head to head matchup. That's what weighs the
Mm.
most. But if it comes to a Notre Dame, I bet you it won't. Bet you it won't.
We'll see. We'll
I'm
see.
trying to tell you, man. All right, let's move on to the next game. And hate to do this to you, my brother, but you're a Illini, man.
Oh
They
man,
went
yeah,
out to Autzen, and they got a rude awakening. This is,
they
the
did.
Illini again, still a very good football team, really playing well this season, but not quite there yet. The Ducks. what was it, 31-9? The Ducks kind of handed them a tough beating
Yeah,
there.
38-9.
38-9. Sorry. Okay. What
38-9.
did you see there? What did you think was just the biggest reasoning behind Illinois kind of getting taken behind the woodshed there?
Oregon is the number one ranked team in the country, and
Yes.
they showed why they are the best team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
They've got speed. They got
Yeah.
offensively, they're able to keep them off balance. Illinois could never really figure out what they wanted to do. They didn't know if they was throwing sweeps, if they was running the ball, taking deep shots. That really hurt them. The one-on-one matchups, receiver, defensive back. Oregon's receiver really were outplaying Illinois. They was making guys
Mm-hmm.
miss, catching the ball, getting a few yards. Running backs was running physical.
Mm-hmm.
So Oregon really put that physical domination on Illinois, which was,
Right.
unfortunate for me. I was hoping to see um, more of a shootout because Illinois has the
Mm-hmm.
firepower to do that. However, they just really couldn't get the ball moving. Guys are getting banged up out there. That was tough too, and that's usually when a telltale sign of kind of where you're at as a program. Because
Mm-hmm.
Oregon was coming down, they were taking some shots,
Mm-hmm.
and you were seeing Illinois was feeling it. Right? They were they
Right.
were
Right.
they were starting to, as they were put in the locker room, lay down a little bit, which is unfortunate to see. But hey, Oregon is a great team. I think this is a great game for Illinois to kind of keep in the back of their mind.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it's going to take, and this is
Mm-hmm.
kind of where
Mm-hmm.
we're at because
Right.
at the end of the day, there's now opportunity for more teams to make it into the playoffs. You can play a
Yeah.
team like this, still do what you
Mm-hmm.
do, get a chance to get back in, and possibly see them again, right? So it was a great test for them, and we'll see how they can react to the next week. Got to keep
Yeah.
winning though. That's the big thing. I think they
Big
have
thing. Big thing.
Minnesota this week,
Mm-hmm.
and got to win that. Got to come
Yep.
out and do what Illinois needs to do to get that win.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of block out the Oregon noise and nonsense, make the corrections, and get back to 1-0, get this train rolling again.
1-0 every week. That's the key.
That's
That's
it.
the key.
That's it.
Yeah. Oregon looks good, man. And one of the
Hey,
things that I heard on another show that I was watching is I think it was Always Irish Notre Dame Football Podcast with John Kennedy. And one of the things he was saying was, if you're in the Big Ten, how do you feel? You'd be upset that Oregon just walks in and in its first year, it's looks like it's on pace to win the conference. How would you feel about that?
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it's obviously you don't like. Obviously, you want to win, right? I can only speak
Yeah,
for a Big
of
Ten.
course.
You want to win, but I
Hmm.
don't think there's ever a man. They came in and just won. Now, the fact that they're coming in and dominating, that
Hmm.
is kind of a interesting sign because maybe Big Ten football will start to have a different type of appeal to it. If Oregon does come in and win, and
Hmm.
they say, hey, okay, well, maybe we do need to kind of change the way that programs recruit, the way that
Hmm.
we run our offenses, because
Hmm.
this team just came in and did a whole different scheme. So
Right.
it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Hmm.
But they Oregon Oregon is a good football team, and I'm interested to
Yes,
see
sir.
how they match up when they play some SEC schools. Because I mean,
Hmm.
you take Oregon and you put them in the SEC. That team that I saw play Illinois on Saturday, you put them
Hmm.
against some SEC schools,
Hmm.
they will win. They can compete,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and that's interesting. That's cool. That's really cool to see, honestly.
And so, to your point about that, about them against the SEC schools, I think much like Steve Sarkisian did at Texas, Dan Lanning specifically built the team that way because remember, I believe he was Kirby Smart's defensive coordinator
Mm-hmm.
previously. So he's
Mm-hmm.
an SEC guy. He understands what they do down there and how they make it work and how to
Mm-hmm.
build a team to be physical and to be fast. And so I think he mimicked that style in what he's
Mm-hmm.
brought to Oregon. And of course, the Nike money doesn't hurt, right?
Does not
So
hurt at all. Swag,
right,
all of that,
right.
getting all the
That's
recruits. Yep.
facts. Yes. And so in doing that, he built a team specifically designed to be physical enough, unlike a USC, right? To be
Mhm.
physical enough to go into the Big Ten and be able to stand up to that type of bully ball that they play in that part of the country and in that particular conference. So it worked out pretty well. So,
Yeah.
like, I don't think I would be upset if I was in the Big Ten, watch Oregon walk in and start doing work. I would just say, damn, we need to step our game up, man. These
There you
guys
go.
coming in here making us look bad. All
There
right,
you go.
let's, we got to reassess everything. We got to reassess the strength and conditioning program. We got to
Yep.
reassess the regional recruiting, all of these things. We got to see what they're doing, and we got to raise our level. So I think that's kind of how I would look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were there any more games last week that kind of intrigued you that you wanted to quickly mention before we move on to some Heisman thoughts?
No, not really. That was it.
Okay. Yep. 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 Good stuff. Giga Maggies. I'll say it again. Keep winning. Keep winning. It's good stuff for the Irish. Okay. Next up, I believe that's me. We will go to Heisman thoughts, and we'll keep this one brief because the Heisman is such a, I don't know, it's a weird thing. I guess it's kind of akin to the NFL MVP, and more
Yeah.
often than not, unless somebody does something totally otherworldly, it's going to go to a quarterback. And so, quarterback on the best team is generally the guy who wins the Heisman. So I'm looking at these four guys you see on the thumbnail. Travis Hunter, who is playing just about every snap, offense and defense, which
Yep.
you're seeing him get dinged up. So I don't think that's the best thing for him. Then, of course, Dylan Gabriel, transfer quarterback, who's now second all time in passing touchdowns and second all time in passing yards. He just passed Timmy Chang for the passing yards, and he passed Kellen Moore in passing touchdowns. I think he's a fifth-year senior. So however you feel about that is how you feel about it. I'm always like, can you compare a guy who did what he did in 5 years to a guy who did what he did in 4 years? That's always kind of iffy to me, but it is what it is at this point. Then you've got the running back from Boise State, Ashton Genty, who's an absolute freak, averaging 8.7 yards per carry and has almost 1,400 yards rushing through, I want to say, 8 games. So
Mhm.
he's an absolute beast. And then, of course, my guy, the guy who I think is the best player in the country. I don't know if he's the Heisman, but I believe he's the best player in the country, and that's Shedeur Sanders. So between those four guys, if somebody told you, hey, pick one right now, your life depends on it, what would your
Yeah.
thought be?
I gotta go on just the diversity alone of Travis
Hmm.
Hunter. I mean, the boy's playing both sides of the ball and contributing on both sides of the ball. And
Right,
I think
right.
that's the part that is worth the sale, right? Because sometimes
Hmm.
it's like, all right, well, we got a guy that's a DB and a returner,
Hmm.
but he's really only doing returner. We got a receiver in this, and he's really only doing that. But he's producing on both plays. Alone, I think is just incredible. And I say a lot of hats off to Deion Sanders too, for
Hmm.
giving him this opportunity to do it.
Right.
Now, is this something that he can maintain at the next level?
I don't think so.
Probably not on
Right.
paper. Probably not, because this
Yeah.
is now the 1% of the
Yes.
2% of the top athletes of the entire. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
these guys are big time, but I
Hmm.
also think there's never been a player in a position who've been allowed to do both, right? So it
Hmm.
just takes one coach to say, yeah, we'll give you an opportunity and see what you can do. And then they go from there.
So
But
what
yeah,
about
that's my vote.
what about the logistics of something like that on the professional level? Because
Yeah.
you can't be in the defensive meeting room and the offensive meeting room at the same time.
Mhm.
And then both of them, in order to master your craft, take a lot of time and a lot of work, right?
Mhm.
In in college, if you're that elite, you can often out athlete your competition, right? And I think
Mhm.
Travis Hunter is a dude who can do that. But on the next level, with all these crazy wide receivers running around,
Mhm.
in the National Football League as it is right now, how
Mhm.
much time will he have to spend honing his craft as a DB? And then to try and flip it and say, I'm going to turn right back around and be an elite wideout. I just don't know. I wouldn't do that. Also, because if I do that, I have to consider the injury risk because
Mhm.
everybody gets hurt in the National Football League. I got to consider
Mhm.
that. And then I also have to think about the salary implications, right? If he plays equal snaps on both sides of the ball, I don't know if they'll allow him to do that because what do you pay him as then? You pay him as a cornerback, you pay him as a wideout, like
Yeah.
you have to think about all these smaller considerations. Where does that come into effect? And I'm surprised all the people in the major sports media who are talking about this thing haven't mentioned that part of it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah. That's such a great point, and I haven't thought about that either. But it's really going to determine how, when he says, "Hey, I'm going to the NFL," what
Hmm.
all his tape looks like up to that point, right?
Okay.
Then you got
Okay.
to make a decision on how much do you want to invest in a player like this.
Hmm.
How much do you want to give? Will he be first round? Will he be whatever? If he wins the Heisman Trophy, I believe he's going to go first round. If he
Okay.
doesn't win the Heisman Trophy, I also believe there's a good chance he could go first round just because of what he's capable of doing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think he's
what
too good not to personally.
You know what I mean? And what a coach will probably do wherever they bring him in, they're probably going to sit him down and ask him and say, "Hey, what do you want to do? We want to give you the opportunity to do both, but
Hmm.
ultimately, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a
Yes.
receiver? Do you want to be a DB?" He might
Right.
say, "Hey, I
Right.
want to be a receiver." Okay, cool. Then they're going to try to find ways that they can put you in packages to play
That's
defense,
right.
right? Or Travis Hunter might say, "Hey, it might be smarter for me to say I want to be a DB, win the starting DB slot, and get packages where he comes in as a receiver." They got
Hmm.
formations where it's only
Hmm.
him coming in. He can be used as a distraction. They can bring him on reverse, and that kind
Hmm.
of works him into the system. Now, what that looks like for compensation, I don't know. Right? You could do something where it's a earn it kind of thing where, hey, if you're going to be a DB, but you do get X amount of yards amongst the how many
Okay.
percentage snaps that we get, we'll give you this
Right.
type of bonus, right? So
Right. Right.
you could really write anything out. It's just going to really come down to his agent and his team, and what type of program and production they're thinking for, right?
Hmm.
Hopefully he gets an organization that wants to develop him to make him a better player, and not an organization that wants to use him for financial gain, right? And just, hey, we got this guy. This will get us ticket sales. This will get us jersey sales. This will
Hmm.
get us, you know, fans in the seats and all kinds of stuff. But I think he's a
Right.
great player,
Right.
and is worthy of the Heisman. Gets my Heisman vote right now.
Definitely. Definitely. So you have him as a Heisman. So I would love to say that Ashton. This is so weird for me. I would love to say that Ashton Genty is my Heisman guy, but there's a couple of reasons why. Like one, he's a running back, so for him to get a Heisman, he would have to have numbers like in the modern era of football. He would have to have numbers comparable to that legendary was that 1987-88 Barry Sanders season, like
Yeah.
2,700 rushing yards and like was it 35 touchdowns.
Mhm.
This absolute insane numbers, right? He would have to do that, and I don't think he's going to have enough games. Although, if they get into the playoffs and make a little run, he might have it because they count those postseason stats now. So who knows? But that said, well, I think the awards go out before the playoffs start anyway, right? So it's a regular season award, so that wouldn't even get
Mhm.
considered. So, and I love running backs. I love old school smash mouth football, as you know. But I don't see that happening, right? And then also they're going to say, well, he's group of five, so he didn't always play the best competition. Although, if I'm not mistaken, we talked about this before we hit the button here. I think he had 192 rushing yards against Oregon, who we just
Yeah.
talked about as the best team in the country, right? So
Right. Right.
the opportunity that he had to play against an elite team, he showed out against those guys. And so, there's that. Um, now, Shadur Sanders is my guy. I've told you time and again. I think he's by far the best quarterback in the country. I think his toughness is immeasurable. He has the
Mhm.
ability to make every single throw. He's way more athletic than we think, but he still is an elite pocket passer, which I love. I mean, I think the guy is absolutely as good as it gets. I really do, on the collegiate level. And he reminds me a ton of a CJ Stroud.
Mhm.
I see that comparison there. A guy who can carve you up from the pocket, but still has, well above average mobility and can do it to you. And obviously, we know that he has gotten best of the best tutelage at the position coming all the way up. And we know that, when he was younger, he worked out with Tom Brady. Obviously, he's got NFL coaching and Pat Shermer as his offensive coordinator. I
Mhm.
think he's the best quarterback in the country. I think he'll be taken number one at the position, possibly even number one overall if
Mhm.
Colorado continues to have a really good run to finish out this season. So, um, that said, I still don't think he's the guy either because I think he and Travis Hunter are stealing votes from each other, both being elite Heisman level candidates on the same team, right? So that's the problem there. So what does that leave us with? That leads us with the aforementioned Dylan Gabriel, right? Oregon's quarterback. Um, came over from Oklahoma. Prior to that, he was at UCF. And this is a guy that, as we mentioned, is now second all time in NCAA passing yards and second all time in passing touchdowns. I think Dylan Gabriel is clearly the guy. And I think as long as he doesn't fade down the stretch, he'll probably finish up the season with the lead here. Let's see. As of right now, was this 8 games in? Almost 300 passing yards a game, 2,371 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, 5 picks, and a QBR of 85.5. Like,
Yeah, that's solid.
that's crazy,
Yeah.
So he is he's doing the work. He's leading one of the best teams in the country, and so I think he's the guy. I think he's the guy that's going to go ahead and take the Heisman. And if it was my vote today, I would vote for Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, that would be mine.
We gonna see.
All right, definitely. That's the beautiful thing, right? The beautiful thing about sports, at the end of the day, we're going to see, because most of the time it plays itself out. So,
Yeah.
I tell you what, though, man, Oregon, legitimate chance to win this Big 10 championship. Although they've got one coming up in the Big House this weekend. We know that Michigan is not nearly what they were last year. Obviously, lost a lot of talent to the NFL. 13 guys drafted, I believe. And then, of course, you have unrestricted, undrafted rookie free agents. So you got those guys. And then you got people who transferred elsewhere. So not nearly the same team. And obviously their quarterback situation is in absolute shambles. They can't get that going, but they still have a really talented defense and can run the football, but not nearly to the level they could last year. So we'll see how that ends up going with versus Oregon, hosting Oregon this week. I don't expect Michigan to win, but I also don't expect them to roll over. So
Yeah.
got what we got. All right. And let's go ahead to that final section here. Week 10 look ahead. Now, these are the 2 games, as you see on the thumbnail, that I am most interested in. The 2 games in which I am the most interested, I should say, Penn State and Ohio State. I don't even know if that's a night game. It should be. If Penn State is not doing a whiteout, then I don't know what's going on.
Noon on Fox.
Noon.
Yeah, 12. Yeah.
Why? I mean, that's cool. I'm definitely going to sit back and get my popcorn,
Yep.
Yeah. That should be one of those 7:30, whiteouts,
Yep. They might white it out. Are they playing where they might be in?
They're at Penn State.
Yeah, they're at Penn State. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that should be a good game. That's on my radar too.
Definitely looking forward to that one. Penn State, Ohio State. So here's my thoughts on that real quick is that Penn State has consistently been that team, especially under James Franklin, that couldn't get it done in the big games. They've had fast, athletic defenses, and I was just talking to a buddy about this last night. One of my biggest issues is that they've built their defense on speed. I think they have more sacks in the past 3 seasons than any other program in America, but they generally don't have that big hog in the middle of the defensive line. They don't have that big 3 technique to kind of block things up or push the pocket or, assist in stopping the run. And so if you can get that going, you'll have success. For instance, remember it was a big deal last year when they played Michigan, and I believe in the second half, Michigan ran the ball like 26 straight times.
Yeah.
The reason Michigan did that is because they could not block the pass rush. Chop Robinson was going crazy. So Harbaugh and Sharon Moore said, okay, we got you. Hold my beer. Turn around, hand that thing off 26 straight times, run it down Penn State's throat. So if Ohio State has any sense, they will probably go ahead and do that. I would think that would be the smart move. But Ohio State also, to me, I think Ryan Day got to go, man. He's not the guy. He's not the guy. There's no reason, in my estimation, my humble estimation, that Ryan Day, for all the talent that he has had in his tenure as Ohio State head football coach, should not have a championship. There's no reason. What are your thoughts on this game, and what are your thoughts on Ryan Day's future at Ohio State?
Yeah, he's got to win one. He's got to win one. Like, he's been there long enough that it's time. And also, like, on the flip side, Penn State, not being able to win in the big games, I think they're starting off on the right foot, kind of 7-0, and looking strong. So I think I want to say Penn State's going to win. To be honest with you, I think Penn
Hmm.
State has
I
a
think so
chance to
too.
go in and continue to just dominate.
I think
But
this is the one. I agree.
Ohio State's not gonna lie down. But I also think if Penn State's able to jump out on them quickly, they
Hmm.
got that environment that's rowdy. It's going to be
Hmm.
tough for Ohio State to bounce back, and Ohio State
Hmm.
might have that. Oh, here we go again. Like
Hmm.
this. This is where we're at. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
So they always talk about the most difficult environments to play in college football, and they talk about Death Valley down
Hmm.
at LSU, and they talk
Hmm.
about the aforementioned Kyle Field at Texas A&M, and
Hmm.
they talk sometimes Bryant Denny at night, and of course they talk about Autzen Stadium and Husky Stadium up there in the Pacific Northwest. How hard is it? I know you know this well. How hard is it to play in Penn State when they're rocking and rolling in Happy Valley with over 100,000 in that stadium?
Yeah, it's loud. It's loud. It's intimidating. The
Uh-huh.
stadium has a rock. It rocks. It's kind of like it looks
Mm.
like a spaceship when you're pulling up to it. It's very,
Okay.
metal high. But it's always packed, and I think that's what's
Hmm.
so cool about Penn State. It's loud. It's
Hmm.
packed. They're coming to be that extra, line of defense, that extra little bit of energy, and it's
Hmm.
just an exciting, place to play, right? It's
Yeah.
just, the white makes it, seem very, cool environment, and
Hmm.
even when it gets cool out there. We had a game my freshman or sophomore year, um, snowing. Like it was a snow
Hmm.
game, right? And that was just cool to be up there. It was loud. Penn
Hmm.
State's probably one of my favorite places to play.
Right. Would you say which one would you say is louder, Penn State, the Shoe, or the Big House when it gets going? I think all of them are more than 100,000 seats. Which one
Yeah,
when they
big
get going?
big house is loud. Big house is real loud. Ohio State was loud too. Ohio State was
Right.
loud. Yeah, I would say Penn State. Penn State was
Uh-huh.
probably the loudest from what I
Okay.
remember. Um, and then that Michigan game my freshman year, that was real loud. The one we lost, like
Hmm.
first touchdown that I had, that game was
Hmm.
that game was crazy. Triple overtime, like that third
Hmm.
overtime was nuts. Ground was shaking. It was
Wow.
crazy, crazy.
I
But
can't
yeah, those
even.
those places are those places
Yeah.
are exactly how it looks on the game, where it's like kind
Hmm.
of shaking and people like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's really what it really was like. It was exciting, man. It's cool. There's
Yeah.
nothing like college football, and I don't know. I
Hmm.
didn't have as much time in the NFL, and I played in Canada, and Canada was
Hmm.
was 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 pretty was pretty loud. Some stadiums were more loud than others. Saskatchewan was
Hmm.
probably one of the loudest. Winnipeg was one of the top. Um, but there's nothing like that college atmosphere, right? I think
Okay.
there's a lot
Right.
that has to do with the student body just being
Hmm.
involved on top of just the community. It's a different feel,
Hmm.
and that's to me the best part about college football.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, I think that is going to be crazy. But to your point, I really feel like this is the year James Franklin gets that win and Penn State breaks through with a big
Yep.
win. And it also helps that the Big Ten is now done away with the divisions. So now you see more of a round robin thing because
Right.
as good as Penn State has been for the most part, you get stuck in a division with Michigan and Ohio State every year. That's
Mhm.
that's tough to come
Mhm.
out of that thing.
Right. And
So you're
they're
already
taking
pretty
like
much
third
starting like
place.
third place. Right, right,
Yep.
right, right.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that's a really tough situation to be in, but I do believe that this is the year. I think this is the year. And again, Ohio State will probably, even with two losses, still make the tournament. But the 12-team playoff.
Yeah. It's
I
it's
think,
like a tournament now.
yeah, I know, right? But I think Ryan Day's got to go, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think he's got to go. There's no reason. Think about this, right? The Ohio State people got upset when
It's been a while.
Jim Harbaugh said that Ryan Day was born on third base. He was. He got that job with a program that was humming, following in the footsteps of a champion and a legendary college football figure, and
Yeah.
he's pretty much kept it up to a certain point, but he hasn't gotten where it needed to be.
Yep.
So I think he's got to go. The question is, who do you bring in that can be the guy to take that program back where it believes it deserves to be every year? So
Yeah.
that
Ah, I don't
that's a
know.
totally different thing, right?
That's totally different conversation. And I
Hmm.
don't. I don't even know who you would you go after.
Check this out. Check this out. Boom. Here
Dion
we
out.
go. That I'm telling
Nike.
yo, so
Ron
Wisconsin,
jumped in with him.
Colorado had better throw the bag at Dion because
They have to.
there's gonna be.
Son's
Think
about
about
to
it.
leave. Kid's
If you're
gone.
Florida State, you should already have your people talking to his people on the low,
I
and
want that to happen.
then finding out. Okay, we know what the buyout is for Mike Norvell. What does Coach Prime want? Are we willing to do this? And are we willing to give this guy the level of control that he wants to come in here, right? Because we know what he can turn this program into. We know how quickly he can turn it around. And realistically, what has been the issue at Colorado with Coach Prime in terms of getting that program where he wanted it, right? Getting the hog mollies up front, right? Well,
Yep.
offensively and defensively, getting those lines in play. And they're already much better. Warren Sapp is on that coaching staff, obviously NFL Hall of Fame defensive lineman. And so, I'm sure that Dion is probably going to take most of his staff wherever he goes if he moves on. But imagine you go to a place like an Ohio State or a Florida State or a Florida if they fire Billy Napier, which I'm sure they're going to do, right? All those things are in place for you, right? You got all the resources, you got all the NIL, it's all there. And then we know that Coach Prime has the recruiting chops. That's not a problem for him. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if
Florida would
Ohio
be
State don't get it done this year,
think about that.
their people need to be reaching out to Coach Prime. Okay, what's it going to take? What do you need? What would you be looking for? All these questions need to be asked. All these major programs that may have coaching change, they need to be asking that question. Not saying that he's the only viable candidate, but he's one of the best ones, I think. So
I think so too. He's a great recruiter. You know you gonna get the school. Everybody's gonna buy in. I feel like even if you don't like Dion per se, like I don't like Dion, I don't like that. He's making a huge impact on these kids, on these players. He's changing kids' lives. These kids are experiencing stuff that they would never experience had they not had the prime time effect. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And I think as a program and as a university, there's so much money that Colorado's made since Dion's been there.
That's what I was about to bring up.
You know what I'm saying? Like any program has got to be thinking that, regardless of how you feel about the figure. And you can find reasons to hate people, but then you got to look in the mirror. Like, all right, like, is it like why do I not like Dion? Because he's being himself and he's confident in it, and he's coaching boys and talking about the Lord. Like, is there like, you know what I'm saying? And but yeah, you gotta have that money ready if you gonna get prime time.
That's a fact.
That's the one thing.
And but the other thing is, if you're Colorado, you better be willing to pony up to keep him there. That's the big thing. And he is under contract, but you. Oh, sorry about that. I hit the button. But I think that they have to know that other teams who may be in a quandary regarding their coaching situation, their head coaching situation, they're going to be looking for this guy. So that's going to be very, very interesting. And man, I can't freaking wait. College football is so good, man. So good. Not to say the NFL is not great too, but I'm loving what I'm seeing here. It's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. The second game in our look ahead is Texas A&M Aggies. I am now the biggest Aggies fan in the country. But they play South Carolina, which can be tricky.
Yes.
By their record, they're not one of the best teams, but you can see that this is a dangerous football team that can upset someone. They play well. There's still vestiges of Beamer ball with Shane Beamer. It might not be Frank, but Beamer ball is still a thing. They'll turn you over. They'll get stuff in the special teams, and that's ingrained literally in his DNA, right? So you need to make sure that you play a clean game in the special teams and don't turn the football over. But I definitely think that that's going to be an interesting game, just to ensure that A&M doesn't take their foot off the gas, or that they don't lose sight of what they were able to do last week, because what they're looking forward to. And I'm sure, Coach Elko is telling these guys, hey, don't look forward one game at a time. But they're looking forward to that final game of the regular season against Texas. They host Texas. So, they're looking forward to that. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, that should be a good game. I follow
Mhm.
exactly what you just said too, because South Carolina is, on paper doesn't have the record, but that's
Mhm.
still a good football team. And
Yep.
you go out there
Yep.
sleepwalking, you'll be down 21-0
That's
for a
right.
quick. So
Yeah. They'll get you.
Texas A&M is going to have to come out and play on top. Have they mentioned who the starting quarterback will be yet? Is
Um,
is there any talk of letting Marcel Reed continue,
I I
or
haven't heard it, but I would leave him in there because, as you said, but
and
and maybe there's a reason why you haven't heard it yet. They want South Carolina to have to prepare for both, right?
that's right.
And then
That's a
they'll
great point.
just come out and do what they do.
That's a
They,
great
they
point.
play the little mind games. But
That's a great
to
point.
the point you made earlier, I think I would leave the young fella in because he just presents more problems for a defense than Connor
Yeah,
Wegman does.
yeah, yeah. And he can do it. I mean, he came in cold, essentially, right?
Hmm.
Hey, you're filling
Yes.
in. Stop the bleeding, and he did.
Hmm. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Yeah. A&M, man, they look good. They look good. If they can get past this game, I think they'll be in very good shape. The remainder of their games here are, if they get past this one, then they have New Mexico State,
Yeah,
Auburn, and then they finish up with Texas. So, yeah, just
if they could get 2 wins rolling into Texas, that could be a good one too.
but I tell you what, see, they have been blessed. Most of their tough games, A&M this year, they've hosted them. Texas has to come to Kyle Field
Mm.
for that game. Right. Now I tell you, next year they got to play all these games on the road. They got to play at Notre Dame. They got to play at Texas, right? They got to play
Yeah,
at
yeah,
LSU. A whole bunch of these games that they had at home,
yeah.
these tough games, they got to go to the opponent next year.
Right.
So I think part of that is they're really looking and saying, "Hey, like we got a really good opportunity to take advantage of something here." And the way we're playing, let's go ahead and let's get in there and let's make something happen in the tournament because defense
Yeah.
travels, as
Mhm.
and that defense is
Mhm.
really playing fantastic ball. So yeah. But that said, I definitely, in all seriousness, I got A&M winning this game, but
Yeah,
South Carolina's not going to roll over. So
I agree. I agree.
yeah. Did you ever play against Virginia Tech when you were in college?
No, not Virginia Tech. Nope. Nope. Nope.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask your thoughts on Beamer ball and how difficult that is to prepare for and what impact it really does have on the game because we saw for years that those Virginia Tech teams were leading the country in non-offensive touchdowns scored, and they always had very good defense with Bud Foster, that defensive
Mhm.
coordinator. Who, quick side note, I think he really got screwed in not getting the head coaching job when Frank Beamer retired, but so be it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Outstanding defensive coordinator, and then obviously we know about their elite special teams unit. How do you being a kick return specialist, how do guys coach to have an elite special teams unit? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of really fine X's and O's in that we can't really dig into the minutia of on this particular show, but can you give us a couple of the major coaching points along
Yeah.
along the special teams portion of the game?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's a good one. So there's only you never know. I think the biggest thing is you got to have an identity as a special teams unit. You got to
Hmm.
understand that field goal block, punt,
Yes.
punt return,
Hmm.
kickoff, kick return. Those are the biggest plays that are going to happen in the game because
Hmm.
any of those plays can make or break a game, can
That's right.
add points or take points,
Hmm.
from a game. So everyone's gotta buy in. It's super big to be assignment sound. You got to be assignment sound because it's really going to take the individual matchups that create the opportunities for said returner or whatever or a kicker or a punter to do what they need to do.
Hmm.
So I think
So,
that's
so
really
for those
important.
of us layman football fans who don't know, and maybe that's some of the listeners, maybe you know, when you say assignment sound, can you tell us a little bit more about what that means?
Assignment sound. So let's say, for example, kickoff return, right?
Okay.
And this is a great example because now
Okay.
kickoff return is different than when I played
Yeah.
because
Right.
they're not running down all this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But when I
Yep.
played, It was a traditional kickoff style, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every player has a role. They have a player to block. So you got the kicker
Okay.
in the middle. On the left
Mm-hmm.
side, everybody is numbered from the inside out. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay.
5, 6, 7, all the way to the end. Right
Mm-hmm.
side, R1, R2, R3, all the way to the end. Well, each
Mm-hmm.
blocker has a person assigned to them, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
farthest guy on the outside, he might have to block the R3, but he's got to run 30 yards back, turn his hips, run up. You know what I mean? So all those things come into affecting of the returner. And it's more than just running down and blocking the R3. You got to know that the returner job is he's going to run to the left and then
Mm-hmm.
cut back to the right, which means
Mm-hmm.
you need to be on the opposite side of your guy by the time you get hands on him. So the
Mm.
receiver or the returner has a lane to run, right? So
Okay.
all
Okay.
of those little technicalities is what
Mm-hmm.
makes plays work. Same thing with running the ball on offense, passing the ball. All there's little
Mm-hmm.
intricacies that make the plays, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the art and the skill behind football. And then what makes special teams so incredible is when all of those things work in alignment and you know what the play is, and then you watch it happen in real time.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so exciting. You see as a returner, like, okay, cool. I know when I catch the ball, I'm running 10 yards to the left outside hip of the right up back. And soon as I get to there, I'm breaking to the right. And if everything's correct, this whole right side should open up. This left side should be healed, should be sealed. And the up
Mm-hmm.
back, who was also leading me to the right, to the left, is now going the other way. And I'm going to go right off his hip and have just the kicker to beat. And when that
Mm.
happens in real time and just how
Mm-hmm.
it draws up in practice, it's the
Mm-hmm.
coolest thing.
That is
Coolest thing.
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I bring that up because I want to say, like, 3 years ago, Notre Dame had the best special teams unit in the country. Led the country in punt and kick blocks, and I think field goal blocks as well. I think they blocked like 6 kicks that year. It was crazy, and I think it was Brian Polian was the special teams coach. He ended up going to the NFL with the Colts, who you know very well.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was one of the best special teams units. And then obviously once he left, we kind of got back to the Irish kind of got back to a more regular traditional special teams unit. And I always
Right.
wondered, like, what was he doing that was creating all of those opportunities schematically to
Right.
get all those blocks? It can't just be run as fast as you can and lay out and hope you get it. Like, there has to be
Mhm,
things that he was doing and
mhm,
techniques that he was coaching that was
mhm,
allowing his players to make those type of plays in the special teams game. So
mhm, mhm.
that is actually something I've been meaning to ask you about for the longest.
Yeah, and I'm glad you did because there's so much game plan that goes into special teams that people
Hmm.
don't really think about, right? They don't
That's
know. They
right.
just see them kicking the ball, them catching it, and
Hmm.
doing that. So there's schemes of like, hey, this is a right-footed kicker who has this type of approach, and when he lines
Hmm.
up on the hash on his approach, you know that the ball is going to the right. Boom. When he
Okay.
lines up here based on his approach, you know that the ball percentage wise is going to land here. So you can kind
Hmm.
of perform and scheme different things. We've had times where we're running certain returns where we're going to
Hmm.
start to the right and run a reverse to the left because we
Hmm.
see that the L1 doesn't do
Hmm.
his job. The L1 folds way too quickly. You're the contained guy. You're getting over here way too fast. Well, we're going to run a reverse to go right back and fill the void that you're exposing. We see you do
Hmm.
it on tape. Every touchback, we notice that you're running way across before you should. So, boom, calls a game plan. Things happen. We had a kickoff return, a fake reverse in when I was
Hmm.
in Canada, and that was their whole idea. The R1 would fold too quickly. So he was like,
Hmm.
"Yo, Lank, when you get it, start this way, fake the reverse because he's
Hmm.
already folding, thinking that we're gonna go that way, and you just got to
Hmm.
beat that guy to the corner. Should be a touchdown." Exactly
Wow.
what happened. Faked them,
Okay.
boom, turned the burners on, turned the
Yeah.
corner, ran for touchdown.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. How many
Yeah. So
how many returns did you have in college? You remember?
oh, college, no. So I didn't return no return touchdowns in college.
Okay.
Freshman year, I did some returning. Later on, did more receivers. It really was when I got to the CFL that I kind of earned the returning job. First earned
Okay.
it in Winnipeg.
Hmm.
Punt returner, kick returner. Because I was always like the bubble receiver, right? So I was either
Okay.
like
Okay.
the third or fourth receiver, but I was a special teams guy. I could return kicks, I could return punts, I could kick, I could punt. So that just
Oh
helped
wow.
me like make, that helped me
Hmm.
when it was like, hey, all right, we got two guys to cut. Well,
Hmm.
Lankford knows every spot in the receiver, and he can
Hmm.
return kicks. Boom. Like
Hmm.
that would help me kind of get in.
Okay.
So
Okay.
being a returner, I was able to kind of make teams and make plays, and that's really what I loved. I enjoyed being a kick returner and punt returner. That was probably my most favorite.
Okay.
But yeah, that's how it worked, and it's so important. It's a mentality. It's a want
Yeah.
to.
Hmm.
You never know when the play is going to be the play, and then you never want to be the guy that causes the play not to happen. Right? You never
Hmm.
want to be the guy who was slacking, and you
Hmm.
cause a block in the back
Yeah.
after a 100-yard kick return touchdown,
Hmm.
right, or a
Hmm.
punt return that goes to the house and you are holding, right? You never want to be
Hmm.
that guy because that's points that are coming off the board that
Right.
potentially, can make or break a game and make or break a season.
I hear you on that. I hear you on that. Well, man, that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. And there you have it, folks. That's your quick lesson on Beamer ball, right?
That's it.
Special teams is important, and Ryan's right. A lot of times we hear so much about the offense and defense, and you'll hear, well, special teams are important too. But I think a lot of people really don't truly pay that much attention to special teams. And
Mhm.
freaking the Ravens head coach John Harbaugh, Super Bowl champion, he was a special teams guy under Andy Reid in
Mhm.
Philly. And so, that kind of gives you an idea how important special teams can be. And if you truly excel at it, then it can open doors for you, as Ryan was just saying.
Yep.
So that was good stuff, man. So what we're going to do, Ryan, we are going to leave it here. Another great episode, man. I appreciate you swinging by. And yeah, we're gonna stop right here. And again, we've got these two big games this week, and obviously we know who Mr. Langford is rooting for in this one.
Right. That's right.
We are, right? So yeah, that's going to be a good one. I'm definitely excited to just relax on the couch on Saturday afternoon and watch Penn State and Ohio State. Notre Dame's got to bye, so I can kind of chill and watch some of these
Yeah,
other games in
that's right.
relative peace, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
yep, good stuff. But yeah, we will. I will be back. Was it? I guess Wednesday night, and then Saturday night got another one. So yep, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you're still here. Really appreciate it, and hit the share button if you know other sports fans that would appreciate just a different look on sports talk, and just some original thoughts. So we're gonna leave it right here. Have a great one, and we're out. Peace.